Good morning. I want to talk to you about something that brings a lot of attention to the table. Some of you have seen it, some of you have heard about it, some of you have even witnessed it. Right in front of you is when a law enforcement officer has to fire his weapon in the line of duty. Lately, it's really happening in Ferguson, Missouri. That's what's hitting the news right now. But the problem is, it's not only there. It's happening everywhere in our country. It's just not being reported. Sometimes it's even in your backyard. Figuratively speaking. Thing is a law enforcement officer has to put a badge on every day and go out and face the crooks and crannies of today's society. None of them are all great citizens like we are. But anyways, it's like Josh Cable states. Police officers are exposed to danger from very different elements. And many of them unexpectedly they are dying not just for the job but on the job, and that speaks volumes. These cops they don't know what's going to happen today. It could be a slow traffic day, or they go out and face the world's worst, whatever hectic scenario there is. My point is that depending on the circumstances, I believe that if a law enforcement officer uses proper escalation of force, then they are fully justified in firing their weapon in the line of duty. Many military members become police officers. And the reason for that is because the skills and traits that we learn in the military transitions very well into the law enforcement world. First things first is most people when they become a police officer, they go to the academy. In the academy, they're learned basic laws and pretty much what's right from wrong. And they also get a lot of situational training. It's kind of similar to what we did in the military. From situations of a traffic stop to a bank robbery. They are put in those situations during the academy and taught to how to react in a severe altercation or whatnot. Also, they are taught something that we've all learned in the military was escalation of force. Escalation of force is pretty much different agencies have different levels, but the first one is verbally. You receive a threat, you give a verbal warning. If the threat continues, you can move to a physical, and last but not least, death. And obviously death's being the worst case scenario, but just like the military, the police officers followed the same escalation of force. Next thing I'd like to talk about is society. I want to compare it from now to the past. I mean, the crime rate over just the last decade has quadrupled. And the sad thing is, the majority of these criminals are under 21. And I believe it's how the juveniles, I believe it's how they were raised. I mean, how we as kids were raised 20, 30 years ago is a complete 180 to how kids are raised today. And I believe that really, it comes into play when these kids that are nowadays are growing up. They're getting away with everything, so they look at the law as it's, I'll get away with it. And guess what? They're committing these crimes, they're going against the law, they end up getting shot. And I believe it really has something to do with how juveniles are raised. And it's sad, but that's how society is today. Next, I'd like to touch something that's really it plays the nerves on a lot of people, and that's racial discrimination. And the sad thing is that it's everywhere. No matter how far we try to look past it, it's always going to be around, no matter how we look at it. And many of these altercations that happen, where a law enforcement officer has to, hurt or injure or even kill a suspect or a criminal or just a person, during the altercation or situation, it ends up being a race game. And depending on the race, if it's the opposite, for example, Ferguson, a white cop, a black kid, it was the first thing before any evidence was presented was the fact that it was a racial discrimination ordeal. And I believe that's something that we have to look past. And that's one of the main issues in America today, believe it or not. It should not be something that we assume the first time. Evidence will prove whatever the case may be. But it's a losing situation on both sides of the gun, regardless of how you look at it. While a criminal or whatnot may have been eliminated, depending on the race, now the opposite, the officer has to spend the rest of his life knowing that he took the life of someone. And but I just believe that, we really need to set racial discrimination to the side. We cannot choose to play that card anytime a race and an opposite race get into it and someone gets injured. We have to look past it, because in today's society, it's not going to stand a chance, and it's just going to make us weaker. But gotta move past it. In conclusion, there are no winners when a cop has to fire his weapon in the line of duty. There's none. Someone loses their life, and that's never a good thing. Law enforcement officers are trained to react in sticky situations, and that's what they should do, because that's how they make a living. But there are bad cops out there, but don't let one bad apple, spoil the bunch. It's not what you want. But that can go for any job, go for military, go, to firefighters, anything you say. There's always that one bad one that, slipped through the cracks. And, I mean, there are quite a few, but we can't judge an organization off of the bad ones. But with that being said, a police officer, if he uses the proper escalation of force, he is fully justified in firing his weapon in the line of duty, regardless of anything. Thank you.